Stock futures dipped down a little bit, but this may be the best month on record for the Dow Jones. Michael Flynn has a bombshell of documents released that may corroborate that he might be innocent at this point here. De Blasio takes after an unlikely historical world leader. We will have to talk about the COVID, but the heat may be turning up on Joe Biden as well. Plus, we'll do a thing I like and a thing I hate. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. All right, I guess if I'm a little bit of a jeb today, it's because we actually went through, and I was so close to the end, I just said, fuck it, we're going to go through. And those of you who watch Ed's World Gaming, we finished up the Lonesome Road last night, which means onward to the vanilla game. And 25 more weeks of that, or however the hell long. We've been playing Fallout New Vegas on Ed's World Gaming for 4 months, I believe, at this point. I think it's been longer than that, actually. But yeah, we just finished up all the DLC, so all we have left is the vanilla game. But I mean, anybody who's played Fallout knows that that's another 120 hours or more. So we'll get through that and we'll see how that goes anyway. But this is Contemporary. Before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary. You can check out the generational gap, Stephen Ignoramus, Freckles and Britt, Wyatt Birkenhoff, the R-rated conservative, and this guy right here. Check us all out over there. Check out our merch and pick up some freedom-minded stuff. We'd love to have you. Let's get the live chat up here and let's get started. So, from Investors Business Daily, we will start with Alan R. Elliott. Can the Dow Jones today nail its best month in 45 years? NASDAQ up ahead of jobless data. Facebook spike. Stock futures simmered in mixed trade Thursday as a historical month on the market ends with a heavy slate of earnings news, wildly volatile oil prices, and rapidly evolving information related to the coronavirus pandemic. Weekly unemployment claims were higher than expected, but still showed a fourth straight decline. Tesla, Facebook, and Hologic soared on earnings. Boeing and Microsoft led the Dow Jones today as the index tracks towards a record-setting month. Dow Jones futures dipped 0.5% below fair value, with the index still tracking toward its best monthly performance in nearly half a century. S&P 500 futures slipped 0.2%. NASDAQ 100 futures climbed 0.7% on the stock market today after the NASDAQ charged to a 3.6% advance on Wednesday. Oil prices were far from settled, with West Texas Intermediate spiking 15% in early trade, and Europe's Brent crude spiraling 11% higher. Excuse me. Marathon Oil led the S&P 500 up 15% as energy names commanded 8 of the top 15 gains on the index. Tesla, Facebook, and Vertex Pharmaceuticals topped the NASDAQ 100. Tesla and the typos, that is the one that drives me nuts. So Facebook, Feacebook, I know you meant to say Facebook, but that'll just throw you off right in the middle of the article, soared more than 8%. Vertex clocked a 5% gain after delivering earnings reports late Wednesday. Gilead Sciences was also in the mix, up 2.7%, rising after positive coronavirus trial news for its drug remdesivir on Wednesday, and ahead of its first quarter report due out after today's closed. Hologic spiked 11%, Twitter jumped 6%, and ServiceNow plowed nearly 6% higher, all on earnings. Hologic and ServiceNow each ended 13% below buy points on Wednesday. Apple climbed ahead of its fiscal quarter 2 report due out after the close. Excuse me. Vertex and IBD leaderboard stock has dropped back into buy range above 249.95 buy point in a cup base. That buy range runs through 262.45. Tesla, also on the leaderboard list, ended Wednesday in a buy range above 775.05 buy point in a cup with base handle. The buy range runs 813.80. The stock's pre-market action suggests an open well above that level, which presents a possible breakaway gap buying opportunity. Keep in mind, pre-market moves do not always carry over into regular trade. IBD 50 stock Facebook is climbing the right side of the cup base with a 224.30 buy point. The stock ended 15.5% below that buy point on Wednesday. April could be the best month on the Dow in 50 years. That is amazing considering how everybody thought that we were just going right down into the 3,000 range for the Dow Jones, and it was all over. The economy was over, the U.S. was over. We were just going to have to usher in socialism and be done with it. That's what they were saying just a few weeks ago, and here we are. CNBC reports Dow futures fall more than 100 points, but Wall Street is still headed for best month in decades. This is from Fred Imbert and Thomas Frank. The Dow Jones and S&P were headed for a lower open on Thursday as Wall Street wrapped up its best month in decades. Tech stocks rose in pre-market trading led by Facebook and Microsoft, which issued better than expected revenue projections in their earnings reports. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell 129 points or 0.5%. S&P were lower by 0.5%. Nasdaq 100 rose 0.2%. Stock futures retreated after the European Central Bank said it was prepared to increase its emergency asset purchase program. Some traders were hoping the ECB would announce an increase Thursday. Stock surged Wednesday. Another typo. Wednesday on Wednesday. That sounds like some weird, freaky Addams Family adult entertainment. The S&P 500 is up more than 13% for the month and on track for its biggest one-month gain since 1974. The Dow was up 12% in April, which would be its best month since 1987. Both Facebook and Microsoft reported promising revenue figures despite the global coronavirus outbreak. Well, yeah, those are the things that you use when you're at home by yourself and under quarantine. I mean, who doesn't want to just sit for 25 hours a day and scroll on Facebook? Yes, I know there aren't 24 or 25 hours in a day. Facebook soared more than 9% in pre-market trading. Hey, your information and data must be valuable, apparently. After it reported that after an initial significant pullback in advertising revenue, that means your data. In March, thanks to COVID-19, it's seen sales stabilize in the first 3 weeks of April. It reported first quarter per share earnings of $171 and revenues of $17.74 billion. Once again, that's what your information is worth, folks. Microsoft rose about 2% in pre-market trading after the company reported fiscal third quarter sales growth of 15% thanks to growth in its cloud business. The software giant said in a statement that the disease had minimal net impact on the total company revenue in the 3 months ended March 31st, but cautioned that effects of COVID-19 may not be fully reflected on the financial results until future periods. And we were headed, and I'm pretty sure we did see the economy shrink over in the first quarter. That's a given. The government came down and said, you must not go to work. They took a lot of time making sure to tell you that, and we saw a decrease in the economy. There's no getting around that, but the fact of the matter is, we might wind up by the end of the year. I don't think we're going to have 3% by the end of the year, but, I mean, Obama got reelected, and he never had a year of 3% in his entire administration. So, something to watch for. Definitely something to watch as we go along, but I mean, this is all looking great. People want to go back out, get to work, and buy stuff. It's the American way. Unfettered capitalism. Go out and buy stuff. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. All right, so this is a tweet that was put in the Discord from Jessica Green. And then we will talk about some news stories surrounding it. But from Catherine Herridge over at CBS, Flynn docs just unsealed, including handwritten notes, 1/24/2017, day of Flynn FBI interview. Transcript, what is our goal? Truth/admission or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? Read transcript notes, copy original, just filed. So I'm going to zoom this out so I can read a little bit. Obviously, I don't have a double screen up here, so you're not going to see it, but I'll show you or read some of the highlighted parts for you. And then there's a handwritten highlighted part that I don't know if I just don't have enough screen resolution or I'm that blind, but I can't read it. EP 1/24/2017 is the date on it, highlighted, redacted. Our goal is to determine if Mike Flynn is going to tell the truth at his relationship with the Russians. And then on the next page, the one that's got everyone so pissed off, what is our goal? This could be good for our CI efforts. Cut off CP. Afterwards, interview. I agreed yesterday we shouldn't show Flynn if he didn't admit. and there was a redacted portion there. I thought it at last night. I believe we should rethink this. And then the highlighted portion. What is our goal? Truth/admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired? So they came right out and said, we are doing this because we want to see if we can get him fired. All right. So we will kill that and get it out. And like I said, there's a handwritten note on the next page of that, but I can't read it. I can't see what it says there. The link is in the Discord. If you check the Discord in the description below or above, if you're on Facebook, you check that. You can get in the Discord. The link that Jessica Green put in there is there. But we're going to read some news articles talking about this. You know how great it is to not lead with COVID? It's awesome. I mean, I shouldn't be too excited. The end of our democracy may be nigh because of stuff like this. We may even go into a civil war over crap like this, but hey, it's not COVID. From Fox News, FBI discussed interviewing Michael Flynn to get him to lie and get him fired. Handwritten notes show. This is from Greg Ree. Explosive new internal FBI documents unsealed Wednesday show that the top bureau officials discussed their motivations for interviewing then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in the White House on January 2017, and openly questioned if their goal was to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired. The handwritten notes, written by the FBI's former head of counterintelligence Bill Priestap after a meeting with then FBI Director James Comey and then FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, Fox News is told, further suggested that the agents planned in the alternative to get Flynn to admit to breaking the Logan Act when he spoke to then Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak during the presidential transition period. The Logan Act is an obscure statute that has never been used in a criminal prosecution, enacted in 1799. In an era before telephones, it was intended to prevent individuals from falsely claiming to represent the United States government abroad. What is our goal? One of the notes read. Truth/admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired. If we get him to admit to breaking the Logan Act, give facts to DOJ, have them decide, another note read. Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley called the document's implications chilling. The memo appears to weigh the pros and cons of pursuing those different paths. I don't see how getting someone to admit their wrongdoing is going easy on him, one note reads. Flynn did not ultimately admit to wrongdoing in the interview. The document indicates that the agents at least discussed the merits of a by-the-book approach. If we're seen as playing games, the White House will be furious. The bombshell material strongly suggests that the agents weren't truly concerned about Flynn's intercepted contacts with Kislyak during the presidential transition period, except as a pretext. Former President Obama personally had warned the Trump administration against hiring Flynn and made clear that he was not a fan, according to multiple officials. Obama fired Flynn as head of the Defense Intelligence Agency in 2014. Okay, so it looks like I've got to zoom in on the handwritten part, and it looks like it says the same thing that was on the typed part. What is our goal? Truth/admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him and get him fired? I got to zoom in over on the Fox News article. The Justice Department turned over the documents just this week, even though a February 2018 standing order in the case from the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, Emmett Sullivan, required the government to turn over any exculpatory materials in its possession that pertain to Flynn. Such materials ordinarily do not need to be disclosed to uncharged individuals or those who have already pleaded guilty. Sullivan has ruled that although the matter remains unresolved by the Supreme Court, some circuits have suggested the opposite. Fox News is told even more exculpatory documents are forthcoming as Attorney General Bill Barr continues to oversee the DOJ's investigation into the handling of the Flynn case. Flynn previously charged that top FBI officials, including McCabe, pressed him not to have the White House counsel present during the questioning. That's against the law. With two agents that led to his guilty plea on a single charge of lying to federal authorities, Flynn was not charged with any Logan Act violation. So, I mean, this changes everything that we saw over the last year, and I mean, all the conspiracy theorists have been essentially right on this so far, which is blows me away. I mean, I knew that there was some funky stuff going on over there with the FBI and with Flynn and everything else to hear, but the fact that they documented it, I really feel like this is not over at this point because as little faith as I have out in the FBI right now, nobody's that stupid to document something like that. So something else is going to come out of this. I know it is. All right, I got another one here from Fox. Michael Flynn attorney responds to explosive documents. I can't even tell you how outraged I am. This is from Yale Halon. Sidney Powell, the lead attorney for the former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, joined Hannity Wednesday to respond to an explosive internal FBI documents, including handwritten notes from top officials ahead of a January 2017 interview of Flynn at the White House. It's just absolutely appalling what these agents and then special counsel operatives did to General Flynn, Powell said. It's an abuse of their authority at every turn. The documents turned over by the Justice Department late Wednesday included handwritten notes on which FBI officials openly indicated that their goal was to get him, Flynn, to lie so we could prosecute him or get him fired, during special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into allegations of collusion by Americans with Russian officials at the time of the 2016 election. The handwritten notes, written by FBI's former head of counterintelligence Bill Priestap after a meeting with then FBI Director James Comey and then FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, indicated that the agents planned to get Flynn to admit to breaking the Logan Act and catch him in a lie. The Logan Act is an obscure statute that's never been used in a criminal prosecution. We read what it is already here. I interpret the notes as absolutely damning of their conduct and their plan, Powell said. They rejected the advice of the apparent lawyer who wrote on the handwritten note that they'd not play games with the White House, and instead that is exactly what they did. Flynn has previously claimed the FBI officials, including then Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, pressed him not to have an attorney present while he was questioned by two agents. That questioning ultimately led to Flynn's guilty plea on a single charge of lying to federal authorities about conversations with Russia's then ambassador to Washington, Sergei Kislyak. The bombshell documents are devastating evidence of the lengths they were willing to go to disregard all protocols, all prior rules. Their standard practice in other cases is to warn of a Section 1001 violation for making false statements to federal investigators. None of that applied to General Flynn. They had only special violations of every protocol known for him because they were determined to take him out. Mueller eventually concluded there was no evidence of collusion with Russian foreign nationals and President Trump's campaign. However, in 2017, Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about conversations with Russia's ambassador before President Trump took office. In January, Flynn attempted to withdraw the guilty plea, saying federal prosecutors had acted in bad faith and broke their end of the bargain when they sought prison time for him. Yeah, this is going to change a lot of things, and of course now every leftist on Twitter that screamed, "Whoa, everyone around him's got this many guilty pleas." Well, we just have to redact one at this point because, yeah, that's pretty bad. And once again, the worst part of this, I've been saying this forever, is not necessarily the fact that they did this to Flynn. And the fact of the matter is if they can do this to people up on the top, they can do this to you and me. And that's what we need to be paying attention to. If the FBI and other law enforcement agents and the government itself will take this much time to suspend the Fourth and Fifth Amendments for the president, for General Flynn, and for so many other people on the top who actually are connected, have legal counsel, and can actually fight some of this. Imagine what they're going to do to you and me. That's the worst thing for me to think about out of this, what they plan to do to those of us who do not forward their political agenda. This is big, and this is going to change a lot of things. All right, Lindsey Graham decided he needed to weigh in on this. Graham on General Flynn bombshell, reeks of criminal activity. There's a lot more coming. This is from Daily Wire News. Senator Lindsey Graham told Fox News host Sean Hannity on Wednesday that the bombshell, wow, Hannity was busy, in the case of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, reeked of criminal misconduct and that there was a lot more coming in the case in related criminal investigations. Yeah, this is far from over. Yeah, there's a lot more coming. Graham said. It's pretty apparent to me that General Flynn was a victim of an out-of-control Department of Justice. He basically got railroaded. It's pretty widely known that the Obama administration didn't have much use for General Flynn. General Flynn deserved better from his government, Graham continued. He was willing to die for his country, and the people who were involved in this, I hope, will be held to account. Attorney General Barr is beginning to right wrongs. There's a lot more coming. I promise you that everyone who signed the FISA warrant against Carter Page will be asked to testify before the Judiciary Committee. These notes reek of criminal misconduct, Graham concluded. One of the worst things that can happen in any democracy is for those who are in charge of the law to take it into their own hands for political purposes. I think that's what's happening here. Time will tell. I promise you that we are going to find out how the FBI operated when they were told by the Russian subsource in January 2017. The dossier is a bunch of garbage. I find it impossible to believe that they did not work its way up Comey and McCabe. In January 2017, the person who prepared the dossier for Christopher Steele told the FBI it's a bunch of bar talk and hearsay, and they obtained 2 warrants after that. How could that possibly happen? Yeah, there's so much more coming out of this. There is so much. I can't wait to see more of this. I'm pretty sure COVID is over at this point, because there's no way they're going to be able to hide the rest of this from the news. Alright, so moving on to talking about things that involve COVID at this point. So this tweet from Jason Campbell kind of surfaced out of nowhere, and this almost made it to the thing that I hate today, except I found something that I hated even more. But Jason Campbell tweeted out, Ben Shapiro, if someone who's 81 dies of COVID-19, that is not the same thing as if someone who is 30 dying of COVID-19. If grandma dies in a nursing home at age 81, that's tragic and it's terrible. Also, the life expectancy in the United States is 80. Now, that was taken completely out of context. I actually listened to the interview he was talking about with that. But that was also worded in the worst possible way that he could ever word that. I could think of 20 better ways that he could have worded that, but I understand what he was trying to say. And once again, if you go further than that little bit of a clip that they used off of that, then you will see that, I mean, he had other things in mind when he was talking about it. But man, that was the worst possible way. But why are people paying attention to him? Let's see why he is in the news at this point. Going over to Fox News, Ben Shapiro blasts worst mayor in America, de Blasio, for singling out New York City Jewish community in a tweet. So Shapiro is calling out one of the Democrats at this point pretty loudly for things that he actually did wrong, and yeah, now they need to shoot him down over it. This is from Yale Halon. Ben Shapiro blasts worst mayor in America, de Blasio, for singling out New York City Jewish community in a tweet. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio's tweet scolding of the Jewish community after a Brooklyn funeral was broken up by police for allegedly violating social distancing requirements encapsulates his troubling approach toward anti-Semitism in the city, Ben Shapiro said on Wednesday. He has the gall to suggest we won't tolerate anti-Semitism in New York. What a fool he is, the Ben Shapiro show host said. The funeral of Rabbi Chaim Mertz in the ultra-Orthodox Williamsburg section of the Brooklyn appeared to draw a large crowd as images of the scene surfaced on social media Tuesday. My message to the Jewish community and all communities is this simple. The time for warnings has passed, de Blasio tweeted later that evening. I have instructed the NYPD to proceed immediately to summons or even arrest those who gather in large groups. This is about stopping the disease and saving lives, period. Yeah, that's not authoritarian by any means. That's not 1984-ish by any means. The mayor's response drew swift condemnation, while critics did not appear to dispute whether the funeral was a violation of the social distancing rules, which call for people to remain at least 6 feet apart and limit large gatherings. They questioned de Blasio's language toward the city's Jewish population months after a rash of anti-Semitic attacks in the New York metropolitan area. Let me point out that a failure to abide by social distancing has no specific race and no specific religion because it's not tied to race and religion, Shapiro responded. Can you imagine if de Blasio said, we have higher rates of transmission in the black community, so I'm telling them that if you don't stop gathering in large crowds, I'm going to send the NYPD to arrest you? Would de Blasio ever say that? Of course not, because it's absurd. But de Blasio is perfectly willing to single out the Jewish community, the outspoken conservative continued. Shapiro emphasized that while he is not defending those who violate social distancing orders, de Blasio's failure to call out the people who appeared to be ignoring the rules during Tuesday's Air Force Thunderbirds and Navy's Blue Angels flyover shows a glaring double standard. De Blasio singled out the Jewish community, and he didn't just say this little subsection of Williamsburg. He said the Jewish community more broadly, as though, like all the Jews on Broadway, were getting together in their off hours and gathering in large groups, said Shapiro. Let's make this clear, gang. The vast majority of Orthodox communities around the United States are shut down. My show shut down before the lockdown orders in California. There's one particular area in Williamsburg where they're still gathering, gang, and this is bad across the board. No group should be doing this, but it's the Jewish community, the only community of people in New York who have gathered together, he went on. Hey, check out my wife. She's a doctor. She's smoking hot. De Blasio addressed the matter on Wednesday, saying at a press briefing he spoke out of frustration and anger after witnessing the crowd, but that the message was sent with tough love. He's truly the worst mayor in America, Shapiro said. He's actually a horrible person. Satmar headquarters, the Hasidic community who hosted the funeral, put out a statement last Tuesday saying the funeral was originally approved and actually organized by NYPD News 2 hours before it started. PD brought trucks with barriers, tower lights to close off Bedford Avenue and the surrounding area. It's the New York City Mayor's Department who originally approved it before deciding to take it back. Yeah, this whole thing with de Blasio just going out and singling out a single race over this too is just... You give these people so much power and they don't know when to stop. Now, de Blasio had a hard time on his hands. He actually did, because New York was the hardest hit by COVID. It really was, and I don't begrudge him that fact, but you can't go out and start saying that. And as much problem as I have with Shapiro over the years, he hit that one right on the head. If de Blasio had said the same thing about blacks, Hispanics, or Muslims for that matter, he would have been raked over the coals. His own party might have lynched him for it. But he can get away with it because it's the Jews. Within party, of course. Alright, and looks like this next article actually says a lot of the same thing, just without the squeaky Ben Shapiro voice, so I'm going to drop this one. The next article that I have up on the stack, Greta Thunberg is back in the news. From Newsweek, Greta Thunberg donates $100,000 to combat coronavirus as activist calls a pandemic a child's rights crisis. Greta Thunberg has donated $100,000 to a campaign targeted at children affected by the outbreak of COVID-19, calling the pandemic a child's rights crisis. I hope she had a GoFundMe set up, because why does this little girl have $100,000 just to throw around like that? I mean, I'm sure that she's got a Patreon and people are shipping her millions of dollars a day for it, but yeah, I hope it's coming from that, because there's no other reason that she even has this kind of money. And I would love to know where the money came from. The climate activist is working alongside Danish nonprofit Human Act on a campaign to help UNICEF launch Thursday. The goal is to protect young people from the primary and secondary effects of COVID-19 pandemic, such as violence, lost education, and food shortages. Money raised will be put towards soap, masks, and other protective equipment, as well as towards providing life-saving information and support to the healthcare systems. Thunberg launched the campaign by donating the prize money she received from the Human Act for the climate activism, contributing $100,000 to the cause. Okay, so yeah, she got prize money from an activist group, and she's using that to put into it. The Human Act has matched the donation. Like the climate crisis, the coronavirus pandemic is a child's rights crisis, Thunberg said in a statement. It will affect all children, now and in the long term, but vulnerable groups will be affected the most. She added, I'm asking everyone to step up and join me in support of UNICEF's vital work to save children's lives, to protect health and continue education. Wow. When I try to do the accent and the voice, I sound more like a supervillain than Greta Thunberg does. There have been instances of hospitalizations and death for people under 18, showing young people are not automatically spared the most severe symptoms of COVID 19. Yet children and young people appear to be more likely to develop milder reactions than older generations. And usually, when it happens in a child, there's an underlying health cause. There's usually something else that goes along with it. But while children may be less susceptible to the physical health issues of COVID 19, a report from the UN published earlier this month said they could be among the biggest victims of the pandemic. Experts have warned children across the world are feeling secondary impacts of the virus, particularly in terms of its social and economic consequences and the repercussions of the mitigation measures such as social distancing. Refugee children and those living in the poorest communities are expected to be the worst hit, once again generally because they have underlying conditions. Some striking findings published in the report include an estimate that between 42 and 66 million children are at risk of falling into extreme poverty as a result of the pandemic. The knock-on economic effects of the outbreak could result in hundreds of thousands of more child deaths by the end of 2020, and that's because the governments are telling people not to go to work, erasing 2 or 3 years of progress in this area in a year. Measles immunization campaigns have been suspended in several countries, placing children at risk of a preventable disease that has been on the rise in recent years. The report also highlights the predicament of children in volatile home situations where they might not have access to proper meals or could be vulnerable to domestic abuse. Yeah, once again, stuff we've been saying since the beginning of this lockdown. As well as the problem of school closures. Yeah, because we can't get our indoctrination. We can't tell people to be afraid of the climate change if they're not going to school, if their parents are actually looking over their lesson plans, which affects more than 1.5 billion children worldwide. UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore described the pandemic as the greatest struggle the world has seen in generations. Fore explained, children and young people are among the most severely impacted by the knock-on effects of COVID-19, so it's only natural that they would want to do something about it. The fact that this disease was nicknamed at one point the Boomer Remover leads me to believe that that statement is a lie. Through her activism, Thunberg has proven that young people are ready to take a stand and lead the change in the world. UNICEF is very pleased that UNICEF is pleased by Thunberg. Big shock. And her supporters have not only chosen to take a stand against this pandemic, but to do so in partnership with UNICEF. So, yeah. The UN is trying to push us back into globalization at this point, and Greta Thunberg is trying to make sure these kids get into the indoctrination where she can feed them her "How dare you" speech. How dare you? You've stolen my childhood, my dreams. How dare you? All right. So from CNN now, we do have some more draconian and authoritarian things to talk about. Madeline Holcomb and Paul Verkaman write, California governor intends to close all state beaches and parks, police memo says. Oh boy. Where's Britt? Is Britt in the chat? We need to see what she's got to say about this. Somebody go find tweets by Britt. California Governor Gavin Newsom intends to order the closure of all state beaches and parks starting Friday, according to a copy of the memo to CNN by a senior law enforcement official. We wanted to give all of our members a heads up about this order to provide time for you to plan any situations you might expect as a result, knowing each community has its own dynamics, the memo says. The closures are expected to be announced Thursday, and the state park personnel will help in local efforts to close the sites, the memo said. Newsom's office did not respond to CNN's request for comment. The memo cited overcrowding at thousands of people at Southern California's beaches over the past weekend in the decision to announce closure. Oh my God. This is great. This is amazing. Do you think California might boogaloo at this point? Because I'm seeing the possibility it might happen. Earlier Wednesday, the governor said at a press conference that about 100 beaches along the state's coastline, about 5% saw large crowds. Orange County and Ventura County beaches were packed as visitors looked for relief from a heat wave. Newport Beach in Orange County saw about 90,000 beachgoers last weekend, despite the urging of officials to follow the state's stay-at-home order. On Tuesday, Newport Beach's city council voted to keep its beaches open with additional enforcement of physical distancing. An Orange County Board of Supervisors member pushed back on Newsom's expected announcement, calling it an overreaction. In a statement late Wednesday, Orange County Supervisor Don Wagner acknowledged Newsom has the authority to shutter the state's beaches, but called the decision not wise. Medical professionals tell us the importance of fresh air and sunlight in fighting the infectious diseases, including mental health benefits, he wrote. Moreover, Orange County citizens have been cooperative with California's state and county restrictions thus far. I fear that this overreaction from the state will undermine that cooperative attitude and our collective efforts to fight the disease based on the best available medical information. Though authorities in those counties reported that beachgoers largely observe social distancing rule, Newsom chastised the beachgoers and warned that defying the state's stay-at-home order could delay its reopening. The virus doesn't take weekends off. This virus doesn't go home. We have to manage and augment our behavior, Newsom said Monday. The only thing that will set us back is people stopping practicing physical distancing. Oh my God. As I've said to many people in California at this point, it's time to come inland. We've got plenty of room for you here. And hey, you can go over to Arizona and have some of the same climate and still social distance. Because there's nothing out there outside of Phoenix. I realize the spread outness of the state will be a little bit of getting used to after you spend so much time in Southern California, but my God, this is great. We might actually see the California split that we started talking about at the beginning of the Trump administration. If Newsom keeps stuff like this up. 3 parts of California, wouldn't you love to see it? All right. Elon Musk criticizes coronavirus stay-at-home orders, calling them fascist. If Elon Musk is up your ass, you're doing something wrong. This is from Claire Duffy over at CNN Business. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is railing against stay-at-home orders meant to slow the coronavirus pandemic, calling them fascist and likening them to forcibly imprisoning people in their homes during Tesla earnings call on Wednesday. I would call it forcibly imprisoning people in their homes against all their constitutional rights, in my opinion, and breaking people's freedoms in ways that are horrible and wrong and not why people came to America or built this country, Musk said. It's an outrage. Give people back their goddamn freedom, he added. The comments followed a string of tweets early Wednesday morning praising Texas for lifting some of its pandemic restrictions and complaining about continued coronavirus restrictions elsewhere, across the country, saying, "Freedom, America, now." The missive was the latest in a long line of tweets dating back to January, downplaying the threat of the pandemic. Because it's CNN, and if you say "Open America Now," you're downplaying it. Give people their freedom back, the Tesla founder tweeted Wednesday. He added in another reply, yes, reopen with care and appropriate protection, but don't put everyone under de facto house arrest. The tweets are the latest expressions of Musk's frustration with how the coronavirus pandemic has been handled, despite public health officials' continued insistence that social distancing remains necessary to avoid a second wave of infections that could overwhelm hospitals. They reflect how one of the world's wealthiest people has sought to leverage his enormous platform, Musk has 33.4 million Twitter followers, to influence the course of the pandemic response, sometimes downplaying the threat of the coronavirus and contradicting guidance from government and health officials. So, oh my God. We were just talking on Discord too, because Jake, the former head of Freedom Scoop, was saying he didn't know what Elon Musk's political affiliation was, and I said that he is the sole member of the Musk Party, and Sewell, former guest of this show, said he thinks that Musk is a centrist libertarian. And then I said, no, Elon Musk takes whatever position is going to sell him the most Teslas. And I don't think he really gives a fuck one way or the other. In which Sewell said, yes, centrist libertarian. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting Elon Musk to call you a fascist, you are doing something wrong. You are definitely doing something wrong at this point. You're overplaying your hand at this point. So, yeah. And just after Newsom comes out and says he's closing all the beaches on top of it, it's getting to that point where especially the Democratic governors are coming out, and I understand they're trying to do what's best for their people, or what they perceive as best for their people, but there were some other figures in history that were also trying to do what they felt was best for their people. One of them wears a tiny mustache, and as Sewell calls it, the freedom windmill on his arm. Alright. So, in the other direction, I got this from Jen the Libertarian over on Twitter. Georgia drops driving test requirements for license due to the pandemic. This is from Gavin Evans over at Complex. Under a new executive order given by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, teenagers within the Peach State will no longer need to pass a formal driving test in order to secure a driver's license. Instead, they'll just have to get the A-OK from their parents. Like roughly 80% of news these days, this development is related to the COVID-19 pandemic. All other driving requirements will still have to be met by young Georgians, but the final road test conducted by an instructor who sweats like crazy, cranks up the AC, and points all the fans at himself, at least when I took it, will be chopped. This new/easier process will be in place as the Department of Driver Services carries out social distancing policies during the pandemic. Those policies make the road tests that require a shared vehicle unworkable, so the states decided just to drop them altogether. During these unprecedented times, the Department of Driver Services is trying to make it as easy as a process for people to get their license and to lessen the burden on people right now, said Stormy Kenny, who owns a driving school within the state, to Fox 5 Atlanta. Kenny clarified that though the road tests have been axed for the time being, drivers will still have to complete all previous requirements, such as racking up 40 hours of supervised time behind the wheel. That means parents are the honor system to make the official decision about whether or not their child's ready for a license. This seems like an idea that's a little out there. I mean, education starts at home anyway, and who better to test than your parents? I think it would be beneficial to have an unbiased set of eyes on my driver. I think I might be quick to let her get her license, not knowing if she knows all the laws, said one parent of a teen who spoke to Fox 5. I'm good with them dropping the road test piece so she can get out there and drive, said the parent of a second teen who spoke to Fox 5. Well, Georgia drivers, sounds like time to double check that insurance policy. That's kind of a shitty way to end this. I mean, for the most part, once a teenager is ready to go for the driver's test, the teenager is ready to get the license. Because they've had their parents sitting alongside of them freaking out for so many months. And I mean, the parents have the experience. They know what the laws are. The road test that's always seemed like an unnecessary step in all this. But it's what the state decides that they need to do, and it is on the state, so good for Georgia, taking one step out of giving freedom back to people. Alright, and I just had one that was kind of funny, because I wanted to read this before we read about Joe Biden here, but this is from the Babylon Bee. Judge dismisses sexual assault allegations against Biden on grounds that he's not a Republican. This is from a couple days ago over at the Babylon Bee. Democratic presumptive presidential nominee was cleared in federal court today of charges that some claimed were based on credible allegations of sexual assault when the judge quickly realized that Joe Biden was not a Republican. Well, this looks pretty serious. Let's see who is on... Wait a minute. He's a Democrat. I can find no fault with him, declared a Fourth Circuit federal judge hearing preliminary claims. It is well established in this court that Republicans are the ones who want to silence women and control their bodies. Haven't you seen The Handmaid's Tale? The judge further added, before banging down the gavel. The bailiff immediately grabbed the female accuser by the collar and threw her up into the air, out on the sidewalk, just like in the cartoons. The allegations against then-Senator Joe Biden date back to 1993. Several other people have corroborated key details relating to the seriousness and timing of the intern's story, including a discovered CNN clip of the mother calling into the Larry King show and a neighbor confirming that the women had told her at the time what had happened. However, the circumstantial evidence of vile behavior, even interpreted under a generous standard of believe all women set by the government in prior cases involving Republicans, was declared to only be valid if the alleged perpetrator was a greedy, evil Republican. This is a victory for the judicial standard in our country, assuming the accused are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, stated Alyssa Milano. We always need to maintain the standard of maintaining silence and withholding judgment on such cases when it is convenient and maintains our narratives. I believe and hear you, Joe, she added. At publishing time, celebrities were circulating video in which they were singing individual lines of Imagine off key in support of the rich old white male Democrat who was promising to take down the bad orange man. I thought that was entertaining. I don't know if you guys did, but I thought that was entertaining. And the last piece on the stack that we have here for the news is from the Daily Wire. Tide begins to turn on Biden as media increases heat over sexual assault allegation. This is from Ryan Saavedra. Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden's fortunes with the mainstream media have started to shift this week as news organizations are beginning to report more and more on the 1993 sexual assault allegation made against him by former Senate staffer Tara Reade. Biden had been enjoying relatively little media scrutiny over the allegation when it surfaced late last month during a podcast interview. It happened all at once. His hands were on me and underneath my clothes, Reade said. Yeah, and he went down my skirt and then up inside it, and he penetrated me with his fingers, and he was kissing me at the same time, and he was saying something to me. He said several things. I can't remember everything he said. Well, that got me a little warm under the collar. As the Daily Wire had previously reported, the mainstream media gave the allegation against Biden virtually no coverage compared to the amount of coverage they gave to Christine Blasey Ford, who accused then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct. The Media Research Center reported, in just over a month, the grand total of ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, CNN, and MSNBC's Reade coverage amounted to 27 minutes and 37 seconds as of April 27th. However, 14 minutes and 54 seconds of that came from CNN on April 25th. Who records that? Who watches 24 hours of news coverage in a month? 24 hours a day of news coverage in a month to come out and find 27 minutes and 31 seconds. Who does that? Wow. I've lost my faith in humanity just knowing that job exists. The coverage that came from CNN only happened after the Media Research Center unearthed and posted an August 1993 video clip of Reade's mother calling CNN about her daughter's problem with a prominent set. 27. My God, I'm still blown away by the fact that somebody sits down and watches news 24/7 for a month to scrutinize down to the second how much coverage. Every news. Oh my God. I can't believe that's a thing. I can't believe somebody's job is to watch TV for a living. The coverage that came from CNN only happened after the Media Research Center unearthed and posted an August 1993 video clip of Reade's mother calling CNN about her daughter's problem with a prominent senator. On Wednesday, publications that are typically friendlier to Democrats have started to turn up the heat on Biden for not addressing the allegation. CNN published a report about how the Biden campaign was dishonestly claiming that a New York Times investigation into Reade's allegations found that they were not credible. New York Times released a statement making it clear that their reporting did not reach that conclusion, which is a hell of a turnaround from the fact that they did reach that conclusion earlier on in the month, by the way. My God, who sits and watches, who hates themselves that much that they want to sit and watch CNN for a living? I can't stand reading 2 or 3 articles a day from them. Who hates themselves that much? But this is going to change what we see coming out of this race. And I mean, there's a reason that most of these people have suspended campaigns and they're not officially out of the race. And this may change the DNC as we go ahead too. We got ourselves a presidential race here, people. And I mean, polling right now shows the fact that Trump is ahead in a landslide, even with the COVID-19 coming out and the economy crashing. A lot of this presidential race we have at this point is going to be moot, I think, at this point. But we got ourselves a race coming up, and I mean, Sanders might come back out of the woodwork here. Tulsi might get back up on the stage. I'm pretty excited for the rest of this year. The writers for Federal Apprentice have really outdone themselves. My God. Who could have seen this last twist coming? And we still have a half a season left of Federal Apprentice for this season. All right. So now we're gonna do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. So, thing that I like, I've been pretty consistent on a lot of this here. I do like the fact that people are finding ways to make money, do business, even if the government doesn't like it. Even if the government wants to keep all of us locked down forever, we've got the internet, we've got commerce, and people are still finding ways. They're starting up businesses, and they're out looking for ways to do it. I've seen people on Instagram say, okay, what can I do to make money during this? What can I do to get through the quarantine? What can I do to make business? We are an entrepreneurial people, and I love that. You look on Twitter every day, people are looking for ways to sell their wares. People are doing back alley haircuts, and I might actually find a way to go and get one at some point here. Maybe go through 7 or 8 contacts, go through, have some cash exchange hands somewhere, and sneak into a dark room in a back alley somewhere. But I will come out with freshly cut hair at some point here, because otherwise I'm going to look like that long-haired hippie in the picture that we saw over on Eddsworld on Monday. But I love the fact that Americans are going to do that. The Americans are going to America. Our freedom is free, and don't tread on me. And now for a thing that I hate. So, Candace Owens' birthday was yesterday. And, of course, the hashtag Happy Birthday Candace was trending because Candace Owens has not really been in the news as of late, thankfully. I have my differences with Candace Owens. I really do. I can't stand the woman. I think she's disingenuous. And I think that there's an ulterior motive behind what she does. But she has been out of the news as of late. She hasn't really talked much. She's been keeping up with her family, with her husband, starting the new life together, and just taking a step back from the stoplight. But that didn't stop left-wing Twitter from coming out and using her birthday as a reason to come out and try and show us why this woman who stepped out of the spotlight for the most part is still a bad person, out of nowhere seemingly. And of course, I came with receipts, to quote the name of the article here, from News One. Every receipt proving Candace Owens is a con artist who is following the money. Somebody who hasn't been prominent in weeks, months even at this point. And now, yes, they're calling her out and throwing this article out there at her. And this was the mildest one I could see. There were some really, really nasty ones that were running out there around there too. And I hate that. I hate the fact that they're bringing her back into the spotlight just to rip her apart after she's stepped away from public discourse for some of the part. I mean, she's not as prominent, and she is still on Twitter. She's still tweeting left and right, but not nearly as prominently as she was even back late last year. Candace Owens is doing her best to become the next Omarosa. However, even Owens' antics seem too extreme for the former White House staffer. Nonetheless, conservatives appear to be falling for her stunts, which has resulted in fame for the 30-year-old and platform for her to spit her hate from. Diddy had her babbling at Revolt TV discussion on black issues. Really, Diddy? Killer Mike says she is his sister, and Republicans had her tap dancing at Congress to say white supremacy and white nationalism wasn't an issue. That said, Owens is a fraud, and we have endless receipts. And, of course, they've got lawsuits with the NAACP, anti-Trump website, Fox News. Just, I could see if she had made a major statement recently, but just the fact that it was her birthday and they decided that they needed to drag all this back out again. Let the woman be. When she says something stupid, call her out on it. But if she is just kind of sitting back and not really being in the mainstream, just let the woman be, for God's sake. But no, because she is a prominent woman of color, which is a horrible thing to say anyway, but she's a prominent black woman who advocates for conservatives. She must be destroyed and defeated at every cost, no matter what. We must destroy the dissenter. Because she looks like us, but she doesn't think like us. But before I get off into something horrible, and once again, like I said, I've got my differences with Owens because I've seen things like the doxing that she's done and whatnot, but before I go really off on the people that have called her out on this, we're going to call this a stream here. I got to go get some breakfast. I'm starving. I got to get to work and enjoy the rest of my day. Enjoy the rest of my birthday. So we're going to call it here. Thanks everybody for watching. We will be back here tomorrow with more Contemporary, where we will shout out everybody who chatted throughout the week. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.